Hey everyone, it's Aubrey, recovering perfectionist, queen of distraction / gardener. Welcome back for another, I'm not going to say garden tour because it's not really a garden tour. We've been to the garden, we've seen the garden. So today, instead of a garden tour, we are going to go to kind of the unseen areas of our property that aren't typically shown in the videos. So we're going to do a tour of that and then see what project we have going on in the front yard right now. Jackson and his friend and Alec are doing a little bit of carrot harvesting in the garden right now. And then the boys and I, we did harvest a few of our pumpkins over the course of the weekend. And then Jackson and his friend did also do Jackson's version of a property tour where Jackson went through and he did snippets of his favorite parts in the yard. So I'll do my tour first, and then if you are interested in seeing the perspective of a 9-year-old in that version of a property tour, stay to the end. Alrighty, here we go. This is typically the portion of the yard that we're seeing. So we're gonna go down to the chicken coop, hang a left, and we'll go to a different portion of the yard that I'm not typically showing, mostly because it's, I don't know, kind of gross and uneventful. Not gross, just there's some stuff. So this building behind me is the original garage to the property. Once upon a time, there was a 3-bedroom single wide trailer where our home is now. That was 500 square feet and full of asbestos. So we opted for a new build. But this building right here was built by the original owner of the property. And I believe it was built with boards that he had milled from trees from the property as well. This is also his original woodshed, which we are currently in the process of building a new one to replace this one. This PVC thing was like a sprinkler car wash that we never ended up using this summer that a friend had given to my husband. But it's just really low and extremely uncomfortable to stack or get wood. So we're going to replace this, just use the last couple years worth of wood in here. And then as we split wood, it's going to be going into the new woodshed, which we will see the kind of like final-ish product towards the end of this tour. And then this shed right here holds the tractor and then our excavator when it's here. But over the course of the summer, we started a excavator and tractor rental service between Josh, my husband, and his dad, who I don't know if you can see it, but Grandpa Dan's trailer is on the side of our house. That's not normally something that I think I ever end up showing. But yes, my father-in-law, he lives on our property right next door, which is super fun for the kids to have grandpa close. I mean, my parents also live across the street, so there's just like a lot of grandparent love going around. This is the backside of our chicken coop, which was originally old stable. The previous owners had a couple cows, I think, at one point. I believe that they were milk cows. I don't know if they ever did meat cows. I mean, they probably did. But when we go around and see the other side, maybe you'll see a little bit of the charm that I just absolutely love about this old building. And then this right here is the property line, and that's my friend Morgan's property next door. But just again, like built by hand, just like old-timey craftsmanship. Love it. Fun fact about this stretch of our yard though, when we originally bought the property, there were 2 cars and a lot of stuff. The previous owners definitely came from the Depression era where they were, I don't want to say hoarding, but just, you know, hanging on to everything just in case. So we have done so many dump runs, and even almost 5 years being here, we're still in the process of needing to do dump runs. This is the side of the stables here. I would take you in there, but there's a ton of blackberries, so that's just really, it's not happening right now. In this portion of the yard, when we first moved in, there was a huge mound. There were a couple big stumps over here and a ton of blackberries, but we did clear out a couple of the stumps. And then for a while on the other side of that mound, that was our compost pile, which we are now currently moving. There's actually a bunch of pumpkins growing over there, which I'll show you in a little bit. But there are hopes and dreams of this area potentially being a cut flower garden in the future, but we will see. Alrighty, we are on to probably one of my favorite parts of the yard, this trail to the back of the property. I love it so much. When we first bought the property, there wasn't this bridge here. This was actually built from free wood that my husband had gotten from an old job of his, but there was just a long tree that was split down the middle, and that was the bridge back and forth. I'll find a picture of it and show you. It was very cute and whimsical, but there was a year where there was just a ton of rain and it was floating and it was very sketchy. And with like a toddler preschool age kid at the time, we definitely wanted something that was a little bit more safe. So that is how we ended up with this bridge here. And all of this floods down into our pond over here. And then there's definitely our fair share of water along this path here. On either side, there are sometimes parts of it that are totally submerged. I wish I would have been able to get a video when the leaves were falling here, but I think it ended up happening during a stretch of a couple really rainy days that we had when I really wasn't spending a ton of time outside, and I was just waiting for like a big blustery day to come out and get some nice fun shots of the leaves falling, but that didn't end up happening. But it's still absolutely beautiful out here. I love it out here, like just year round. It's quite nice. This trail here leads to another pond. It floods basically up to where like the sun is there. It floods up to there every year. Lots of blackberries. This open space here, I always imagine, like, wouldn't it be just the most beautiful space to have like a tiny home, but then there's just like a lot of trees and branches that I imagine falling on it. Like a tree house situation would be a lot of fun, I think. But this was an area where Jackson spent a ton of time when we were in the process of buying this property and building when he was like 2, 3. And this was one of the main places that he really just absolutely loved to explore. Now, once upon a time, this was all ours. I mean, not all of it. There's obviously a house right there. But I don't know if you can see where the T-post is right there. And then the fence, like the closest fence, that used to be in between there, our second parcel, which we ended up making the decision to sell that, but we still have, it's like 1 by 4 acres all the way back here. And this whole field, other than the high spots where like the trees are, it pretty much floods every year. There was our first year living here, it was flooded so very much from like the pond that's over there. We'll see that in a little bit, but we were able to actually take out my husband. It was his great grandpa's old rowboat, and we took that out and we called it Lake Southern. And it was so much fun. But the backyard is looking a little bit different, and the fact that it floods is kind of disappointing. It makes a big portion of our yard basically useless for a significant period of the year. So when it comes to having any cattle or having a garden back in this portion of the yard, it's not going to happen. But a dirt bike track can happen. So here we are. This is the start of the dirt bike track that Jackson and his dad, and I guess my dad a little bit, and Josh's friend, and have been working on over the course of the summer. And is a dirt bike course what I imagined for what was once upon a time a lovely lush green field of wildflowers? Not necessarily, but I'm getting on board. The boys have a ton of fun, and I mean, it's the most beautiful dirt bike course that I think that I've ever been to. And we've got our blackberries over here, more blackberries, and then these butterfly bushes that I don't know if they ended up just here by like intentionally by the previous owners or if they just happened there by accident. But I love those. I do think that those need to get cut down this year, though, just to give them a fresh start. If you know anything about any butterfly bushes, let me know. More jumps. But this is what is our second pond on the property, and this will fill up and flood to about here. In a few months, we'll be underwater. And there was one, I think it was last year or the year before, the ice was so thick that we were actually able to walk on the pond, and all of the flooding that happened to the rest of the yard, it was actually quite cool. This is another feature of the yard that I absolutely love. It's a Nootka rose, so it's a wild rose, and the rose hips on it are just wildly abundant, and I've always dreamed of doing something with these rose hips, but I never have. But this year I am going to make fire cider, and I'm going to add these rose hips to that. So stay tuned in a couple weeks for when I make fire cider, because that's going to be featured in that. This was not a trail once upon a time. It was just trees and blackberries, but now it is part of the dirt bike trail. So let's take a little stroll. It's multi-purpose. It's a dirt bike trail and a walking path. One thing that is kind of nice about this dirt bike path coming in through here is, while we could have gotten back here in the past, it was very challenging and cumbersome. But now all of the blackberries that grow on those trees over there, we're able to access them from a different angle. So we've been able to get a little bit more blackberries than we have in the past, which, I mean, who doesn't love blackberries? Muddy puddle joys. Alrighty, so over here, this is basically the back of the property. We made it. It's kind of a long walk. Part of me wishes it was a square, just, 2x2 make it a little easier to get to places, but I love where we are. Is this our forever home? I don't know. We'll see where life takes us. It's hard with my husband's father living, on our property. I mean, his wagon is hitched to ours, and my parents live across the street, and my dad always says, our wagon is hitched to yours. That's what he always says. But I mean, for right now, this is home. I love it here, and Josh has bigger dreams though, so we'll see where life takes us. But so over there, you can kind of see where there's a difference in the mowing. And that hawthorn tree over there, that hawthorn bush, that was one thing that my heart was very broken to lose when we sold the property. But there are some other hawthorn trees, I don't know, on the property here that I still have access to, but they're just not as lovely as you. And when we made the decision to sell the other parcel, the choice was made for us because our house was, obviously on the one that our house is on. But I'm really happy that it ended up working out the way that it did, because while there were aspects of that side of the yard that I absolutely loved, it's so gorgeous. It was very park-like, but we did not have as much of the forest that we have. And I like the trees. And stuff. This is us. Okay, so we're gonna walk back towards the house. We are going to head back towards the main area, going a different path. This is going to be the path that we drive on. So like I had said, for a portion of the year, back here is basically inaccessible by any vehicle. At a certain point, we can't drive through the water anymore. I absolutely love our oak trees right here, but I also really miss my oak trees over there. Here's my hawthorn bush tree, whatever. And then here's the trail. Alrighty, so on the other side of this grass here is the pond. Oh, look, here's a path that I sometimes take to go look and see what's going on in there. Let's go look and see what's going on in there. So this is what things currently are. Obviously it is low, but it will get to a point where it is so full that, like right there on the other side of those trees is that trail that we had walked down, and it will be to the point where there's like a foot of water in between the pond and that trail, and my boots would be full at this point if it was as full as it normally gets. So it's really fun that time of year though, because our ducks come back. We had 4 ducks that we had gotten back in 2020 when COVID started happening, and there were no chicks at the feed store, only ducks. So my husband and Jackson came home with 4 ducks. 2 of them, as far as I know, are still living, and they have found mates, so they leave now, but they do always come back. So, and I can always tell that it's them because they know exactly where the feed is at the chicken coop. So that's really fun and exciting. And then on top of the ducks that are coming back, our ducks and then wild ducks as well, Canada geese, which I learned recently are not actually Canadian, like they're not Canadian residents, they're Canada geese. They come here too, and in this field right here, they just poop and fertilize the soil and sometimes hiss at the kids, but none of them have ever been aggressive. It's a lot of fun to see them, and there are a couple that end up nesting here on the property, and they'll have their babies and show us, and it's fun and lovely. And here's our 2 apple trees that are on the property line. You can kind of see the rectangle of where our old garden used to be, but let's go over to the compost pile. And then right over there, the trailer that I accidentally ended up recording, that's our neighbors, the people who bought the property next door. We really, really like them. They're very kind people, and I don't think that we could have ended up selling the property to a better couple and their kids. So very happy to have them there. We were nervous for a minute, but okay. So old compost pile, which I've got borage coming up, and a few fun kind of patty pan situation. I was actually able to harvest a ton of chamomile from over here at the beginning of the growing season, and then pretty much the majority of the pumpkins that we have growing in our garden are all plants that I had transplanted from plants that had started over here. Okay, here we are to the chicken coop. And then this rock situation, this is Josh and Jackson's RC wheeling course, which very cool. I love that they were able to add this to the yard. Here's our swing. There's those stables that I was talking about. We've really got this area fenced off, primarily only for chickens right now. The yard's a mess. Don't look at it, but also it's real life. This is once upon a time where my clothesline was, but there were a couple dead trees that we ended up needing to take down, and in the process of taking down those dead trees, my clothesline got taken down with it. So I'll upgrade next summer. And there's Jackson's zip line right there. I'm sure that that is in his tour of favorite things. And then there is our old chicken coop there. We had built that when we were first moving onto the property and beginning our chicken journey. All right, we are back to the garden and the swing set and the sandbox. And this is once upon a time where the old driveway was. And the old driveway went from this side across to the other parcel. So the original orientation of our house was going to be different. It was going to be the front facing this way and us coming from this driveway. But because portion of the driveway went through on the other parcel, we were going to have to get easement from ourselves to do that. And it was just going to be a lot of legal mumbo jumbo that we didn't want to deal with. So we changed the orientation of the house, and obviously it worked out for the best. But here we are, and this is the current new woodshed, which we will be gradually moving into. And these are boards from my dad's house that he planed across the street and let us use. I love it. It's so beautiful. There's Josh's office that he painted recently, and my big pumpkin. And then back in here, once you get past all the old windows, is Jackson's secret lair. Not a super secret. It's adorable. I love how creative he has gotten with this space and how resourceful, and I know that that will definitely be featured on his tour. I haven't looked at a ton of the footage yet, but I have a feeling it's going to be pretty entertaining, very adorable. And okay, let's go talk about what we are going to be doing in the front area of the yard. Also, we still need to do the trim on Josh's office. We also still need to paint the trim on that side of the house, but you know, maybe someday when we move. So the current plan for this space is 2 wildflower lawn, drought tolerant, deer resistant wildflower lawn. And these trees, I like them. I think that they're fine, but they do drop their leaves. The original owner, I know that when he planted them, he thought that they were evergreen. They are not. So they lose the leaves. They look really gangly. And there were like 3.5 trees in between the nicer ones they've just seen better days. So we decided to pull those out. And I don't know if our wildflower forest or whatever is going to end up migrating that way to be on the opposite side of the trees. But there is this blue spruce there. And I think that realistically, I'm recording. I would like to have something to block the view of my parents' house. Also, fun fact, that's me and Josh's old apartment right there. I'll link the video tour that I had done of that a while back in the description below. It's quite fun and entertaining. So, but this right here is the little trail in the mailbox that we share with my mom and dad. Leaving this place would be so very hard because we just have the perfect setup, but I don't know. I try to cut out and avoid talking when the cars are driving by, but for the sake of me trying to make my point, I'm not going to cut any of this out right now, because this is an absolute highway, especially when school is starting, when school is getting out. Like, obviously people are coming and going from work, and there is a new high school that's going to be built pretty close by. So I do think that our road is going to end up becoming infested with teens. And there has already been a close call with Alec trying to cross from my parents' house to our house, and it's just scary, and I don't feel like anybody getting ran over. So that is, probably higher on the list of reasons why we would want to move, but I just don't want to. All right, so that is the end of this garden tour, at least my version of it. This is where we're going to jump to Jackson's.
We got the zip line here. There's a baby chair for my brother. Hurry up! Dude. Okay, and that's one of my favorite parts of the yard. There's the chicken coop, and here's our RC rock crawler wheeling area. And me and my dad, we built a bridge. It hurts my hand to hold this thing. When the blackberries out, that was where we picked our blackberries. My friend Rosalie, she wanted to tell us about the ice that we used to skate on over here.
So this part.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Was straight ice with water.
Yeah, and it was so strong that it could hold my grandpa's quad. And here's the dirt bike track. Let's take a tour. We found an old matchbox that still has some matches in it. dad did not build this thing good, as you can tell. And we put this new gate I think a month ago. Here's our tabletop. Double. Here's another one of my favorite places. This is the place that me and my dad went with my grandpa's quad, and we were driving through here, as you can see. And yeah, that's cool. Oh, come on, not my school shoes. Oh, here's another one of my favorite places. Okay, so this is where I used to play when I was about 3 years old, and I was like, there used to be like water in this like little ditch, and then I was like pretending that I was fishing in it with a stick. And here's the island that I played on. It's probably the worst video in the world. Our fort that me and Rosalie's sister made. Here are these anthills. This one right here.
I don't think that's really working.
Sorry. Oh my god. I'm just gonna freaking get a stick and wipe these things off. I feel like we're doing a little too much talking. You got it on?
Yeah.
Ah! Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, teepee. Like almost a year ago, we made a teepee. I built this thing. I started building this thing when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and it's pretty sturdy. Go there. And I also made this door. Actually locks. Did a pretty good job in this place.
At least I can stand.
And all these logs, this was the entire start of this thing. Like all of this roofing,
I found the nails.
all of this stuff, that it used to be not there, and then it turned into this treehouse.
Thank you for tagging along for the property tour. I hope to see you in the next one. As always, I love you. Have fun and be kind.